Hey everybody, Robey here with another Divi engine tutorial for you. And as promised, here is the follow-up to the other poor man's Liquid Glass application of the new Apple UI that's coming out with iOS 26, macOS 26. They are calling everything by year now. Probably a terrible idea to utilize for UI just because things are going to get lost in the background. But you know what? Apple's doing Apple things, so I'll let them be. And I'm going to show you how to ruin your UI and help your clients when they ask, I want that Apple Glass. This is the effect that I have here, and I've added it with a library that I found called LiquidGL. You can find it. It'll be linked in my description of this video. All credit to Naughtyduk. It's the guy that made this, and it's a cool library with a bunch of different demos that we can get into. But this is how it looks in Divi land. And as you can see, some quirks here with the moving background. The library is updated to be able to support that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Again, your mileage might vary, your browser compatibility may vary, but I figured you guys might want to know how to do this, so let me show you how. Okay guys, as I mentioned in the other tutorial, we utilized a CSS and SVG filter method to apply the liquid glass effect, and here I am going all fancy with WebGL and this library by Naughtyduk called LiquidGL aptly. Now if you go to the GitHub link in the description of this video, you'll see a bunch of different demos. You can even go try it out yourself by loading this up, and this is important to maybe play around with as you're figuring out how do you want the liquid glass effect to be applied on your site, right? And here you can see it working with the video background. Again, you know, like I said, it works for me sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. I've had mixed success with that, but I will walk you through how to do this in Divi, and I'll explain to you how this library works. So let's start with how this library works. This library works by, if you come to the GitHub page, they'll explain it to you. Basically what happens is it takes a screenshot of the full DOM and then caches that. And then it uses that to make a refraction or like a reflection map of the background. And that's how you get that refraction. You can see here that it selects the snapshot target, which is the body by default. We're going to do something a little different in Divi. And then the target to where the effect needs to be applied to. So that's basically it. It's actually a very small piece of code that's very, very easy. And there's going to be one or two more things that are Divi quirks, but you can also see that you pass it a bunch of parameters here, which will control things like the shadow, the bevel width. Is it going to magnify? Do you want it to tilt as an interaction element? How does it get revealed? A bunch of other stuff. So that's going to be up to you. You can go play around. And as I mentioned, like if you go to this try it out link, it'll load up for you. And then you can play around with the parameters up here, and you can kind of see how different settings affect it in the DOM. So good stuff. So let's go look at the Divi way. Okay, so here we go. Here I am on the front end of the same page, but this time you can see that the glass effect is not applied because I've removed all the code and the bells and whistles that you need to make this work. Very simple and plain layout. Now in the back end, you'll see it's literally just a bunch of content here. So there's not much special you need to do to all this. Here I just have a row that I'm going to be targeting with the CSS class to go ahead and place that stationary in the viewport so that you can go ahead and apply the liquid glass effect to that as you scroll. But again, you can put this in pretty much anything in the DOM here, so you can add that the classes that we're going to be using to a row or whatever you want to, depending on how you want to use the effect. So first things first, let's get the JavaScript in there, and then I'm going to talk you through what that is going to be doing. So I'm going to go here to my Divi theme options. So if we go to the theme options, we're going to go to the integration tab. Now I've played with this, adding it to just the code module on the page. It works, but again, you get that very result whether it's going to work or not. So that's going to be up to you. But I'm going to paste my code in here really quickly. Now I'm going to link all this code for you guys and probably the layout also, so you can download that. But the first thing we're doing, we're calling GSAP, And the scroll trigger, that's how it utilizes those. And HTML to canvas is required by the LiquidGL library. And then, of course, we're calling the LiquidGL library all through different CDNs. We're using the Cloudflare and the JS Deliver CDN here. The first thing that you do is you go ahead and you initialize the element, which is the LiquidGL. So you go ahead and you specify the classes that you're going to be looking at here. So there's the fixed class container. Now, this is the first one that we're going to be utilizing in the Divi theme. So if you grab that fixed class container and you come over here, you're going to scroll down to, this is where our class is going to be, right? So we want to apply this to that section, and we're going to put it in the advanced tab and CSS class. Now that copied all the code, which is not what I wanted. Let's just go ahead and try this again. Control C, and there we go. Fixed class container. Great. So this is the container for a fixed class. Now we'll go back to the code and we'll keep reading. So here is where I said we kind of specify what are we going to be looking at. So the first thing is we want to specify the target. So what's the target? Where is the glass specifically going to be applied? So we are going to make that the row that's within our container. So we're going to go ahead and click on that row. I'm going to go and add the class in the advanced tab. Now you can style this row however you want. Now I went ahead and placed border on there. Got some hover effects for the buttons and stuff like that just to make it pop out and be a little bit more visible. And you kind of get like that Apple dock effect, which is fun. So going back into it. And then the next thing we need to do is look at what is the body that we're going to be taking the snapshot of. So what is it taking a picture of to refract behind our liquid glass section? And we don't need to add anything in the DOM or in the Divi settings here, but you know, for illustration purposes, you could probably add it to the section here if you wanted to, but that's entirely up to you. Do it your way. The resolution is just what's the quality of the snapshot, of course. Fade is the reveal method, refraction, and all these settings I got from playing around here until I got the effect that I wanted. So you go do the same to get and land where you want to be with that. Yeah, and that's really it. What happens then is I just put in a login here to make sure that it is actually firing and that it is ready to work. Because it took me a while to get this to work with Divi, if I'm honest with you. Now, the other thing that I did, and this is optional, you don't need to do this part, but I actually added in some scroll animations and an effect that makes the actual scroll section or the liquid glass section, that one here, kind of disappear towards the end of the screen. This is a little something extra because what I found is that sometimes it would not take a snapshot of the bottom or the footer because of the order things render in on the DOM, and then it would just distort the effect. So I figured, let me just fade it out towards the bottom and fade it back in when you come back up. And we can see here with the changes that we've done, not really much happens, right? We've got this over here, and that JS has done nothing for us so far. And that makes sense because we need to add some CSS to further work this through. So, and it would probably help if I save this here. Let me save this quickly, and then let's take a look on the front end. But that shouldn't change too much for us. What's happening in the background, probably, we can see kind of janky how the effect is being applied to the target, but it's just kind of stationary. And then also probably if we look in the console, and I'll pull this over here, yeah, you can see that the liquid glass is initiated or was initialized. So we're actually very close to making this work, but that's not just for you for debugging purposes and whatnot. So let's go back to the layout in the Divi folder, and I am now going to add a code module for just a little bit of required CSS to pull all of this together. Now I've got my code in my clipboard, and what you're going to want to make sure you do is you place it between two style tags. Again, I'm going to be linking to all the code and stuff like that for you, and you will easily find that in the description of this video. Now, some things to take note of here is, what are we doing, right? Okay, so we've got the fixed glass container. Remember, that's our section we have down here, which is no longer there because it's sticky now. And we're making it fixed, important, and then we're just placing it at 50% from the top and 50% from the left. That makes it nice and centered. And then also just some making sure that the Z index is quite high. Now, this is the part that got tricky with Divi specifically. It needs to place the actual border content below the class effect. That makes sense, but this was not a very intuitive with Divi. I tried to do it with the different position settings within Divi and stuff like that, and it did not work. So that is important here, and then also just making the position inherit from the rest of the DOM. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and in theory, everything should be working. And there it loads up, and now you can kind of see how the glass effect, it's not taking effect there. So what I've noticed is that sometimes when you refresh it, then it gets applied, and as simple as that, you get that glass effect. But yeah, you can see that the animation is broken, but you've got that effect of mine where it disappears near the bottom. But that's that. It's that simple to add this UI nightmare to your website, but now you know how to do it. In Divi, the concepts will be the same for the broader WordPress ecosystem. And if you want a simpler, easier way, that's probably going to be a little bit more cross-browser compatible, is check out the other tutorial that we did on this using just CSS and a SVG filter. But yeah, what do you guys think of this? Is this something you like? Is this something you want to see more of? All the links will be in the description of this video. Shout out to Naughtyduk for creating this LiquidGL library that we can utilize to add this design to our sites. And thank you, Apple, for complicating web developers' lives yet again. But now I am being part of the problem by showing you guys how to do this. If you like these videos, like, subscribe, comment, do your thing. I'll catch you guys in the next video real soon. Bye for now.